So for the past few years, this is a bike that I've been riding on my channel. This is the GT Force I've been on for the past few years, and I've loved it. It's been a great bike. I got a new bike, and guess what it is? It's the exact same bike, just a different color. And if you look at the components, almost all of the components are the exact same. There's a few minor changes. The handlebars are a little bit different. I got different rotors on this one, different seat. Is that it? I literally think those are the only components on the bike that have changed. So this is a bike that I used to ride bike park, enduro, big stuff. This is what I ride big stuff on. This is not my cross-country bike. I don't take this trail riding. If I go on a trip, this is the bike that I choose. It's also not terrible at pedaling. It's not the thing I want to pedal around on cross-country trails, but if I need to, I can. Like, these big bikes are actually pretty good at pedaling these days. So let's go through the basic specs of this bike. In the front, we have 170 mils of travel. In the back, we have 160. 29 wheels front and back. This is a high pivot bike, so that's why you see this idler. Now, it's actually not really a high pivot bike. It is a high pivot. It's a higher pivot bike. It's more of like a medium pivot. Because this idler, if you look at some of the other high pivot bikes, this idler is way up here. And the idler is not the thing you need to pay attention to on a high pivot bike. The idler just enables the pivot to be higher. When the length from here to here grows as you go further into the travel, the length of the chain going around here actually gets shorter. So that kind of counteracts some of the forces that cause pedal kickback. People are going to want to know, do I notice a huge difference? To be honest, no, but it's also hard for me to compare it to some of my old bikes because everything about these bikes were different than my previous bikes. And so I don't have a one-for-one comparison. My previous bikes were 27.5. This bike was a 29. So for me to give you an accurate opinion about whether I notice a high pivot would be disingenuous. For the record, I am a GT sponsored athlete. So I am sponsored by GT, and there's a few other components I am sponsored by that I'll mention. These wheels, these are the Noble TR37s. I've been running these for years. Noble is a sponsor of this channel. They've been a sponsor for a long time. They've been a great company to work with, great people to work with. I absolutely love working with Noble. So these are carbon wheels. And I know a lot of people have some hesitancy riding carbon wheels. Anecdotally, when I ran aluminum wheels, why is that such a hard word to say? Aluminum wheels, I would go through many sets of wheels in a year because they would either go out of true, I would ping a rock. However, I found myself constantly have to tinker with my wheels. These wheels, I can literally put on this bike, get a new bike, put them on that bike, ride them for several years, and I will have to check the tension, but I probably won't have to actually true the wheels. These things are freaking bomb-proof. Now, if you want to pick a set of these wheels up, I'll leave a link in the description below. And if you mention Skills with Phil in the comment section of your purchase, they will hook you up with some free swag. I do run downhill casing tires in the back, and in the front, I usually run an enduro casing. So I run a little bit beefier casing, and then I also couple that with a tire insert. I like to have my bikes up and running as much as possible. I hate working on a bike, but if I need to, I know how to do it. I just hate doing it. So I like to have my bikes up and running as much as possible. And so I try to make my bikes as bomb-proof as possible. That way I'm not spending time working on my bike, because that means I can ride my bike, because one thing is more fun than the other. I know some of you guys like working on your bikes. You're kind of weird, but I get it. I just like riding my bikes. While I'm on the topic of my wheels, since it's part of the wheel, the hubs that I run are the Onyx Vespers. These hubs are instant engagement. I know a lot of people like to talk about high engagement hubs. These have an infinite amount of engagement points due to how the Sprag clutch system works. Onyx is also a sponsor of the channel. Not only does it have infinite amount of engagement points, which means it's instant, it's also dead silent. So if I pedal backwards like this, the only thing you can hear is a chain skipping on the derailleur. So when I'm riding down a trail, I can hear my tires hooking up. I can hear what the weather conditions are. So it gives me kind of some indication if something's going wrong with my bike before I would be able to hear it if I had a loud hub. Now, I want to talk about the tires because I've already posted one video riding this bike, and a lot of people noticed that I was running the Continental tires. Now, I'm going to try to read this because I don't know how to say it. Cryptotal, terrible name tires. Do I notice a huge difference compared to some of the other tires I've ridden? I don't know. I've just ridden them in bike park conditions so far, which isn't accurate way of gauging the tires. I can tell you the downhill casing was a lot harder than a Maxxis downhill casing to get on. The one thing I've been struggling with is finding different tire compounds for these guys. So I think in the back I have a super soft, and in the front I have a medium soft. I would rather have a super soft in the front and a medium soft in the back. Unfortunately, you can't find that anywhere. So that's why I'm running the super soft in the back and the medium soft in the front. I hate changing my tires, so I try to run a compound that's a little more durable than the super soft. But yeah, so most of the parts on my bike are very easy to find. I'm not running any electronic shifting, so if I do go through a derailleur or do break a shifter, it doesn't cost me an arm and a leg. This thing is about 80 bucks to replace if I hit it on a rock. And that's something that's pretty likely to happen with how I ride. Now, I don't have anything against electronic shifting, but I've been on more than one ride that someone had their ride ruined because they forgot to charge their battery or they didn't bring their battery with them. Now, as someone who's kind of forgetful, that seems like something that's going to happen to me on more than one occasion. So instead of playing that game, I'd just rather have a mechanical derailleur that always works and I don't have to remember to charge. I will say, if there's one part of my bike that I do wish was electronic, is a dropper post, because I hate setting up droppers. Like, something about threading the dropper post cable through is a total pain in the butt. I've gotten good at it, but it's still something I'd rather not do. So maybe in the foreseeable future I will get an electronic dropper post, but that's the only one part of my bike that I kind of want electronic. If you want to go out and spend $400, $1,000 on a derailleur, you can do whatever you want with your money. I just don't think that's something that's in my best interest. I also buy a lot of the parts on my bike. I know I'm sponsored by GT, Noble, and Onyx, but a lot of the parts on my bike were either stock, they came with the build kit, or I bought myself. I hate sending emails. I hate going back and forth. I hate sucking up to people. So it's just easier for me to buy them. If someone wants to give me something like no strings attached, I'll take it. But yeah, I just really hate playing the game of sucking up to people to get free stuff. The brakes I'm running this year are the SRAM Code RSCs. These are the brakes I've been running on that bike. And those were the first SRAMs that I have ran in a very long time. The last time I ran a SRAM product were the Avid Elixirs, and they were not good. They were not good brakes. So I've been very hesitant to ride them since. I also hated the bleeding process. Now that I'm older and a little bit more wise, I still hate the bleeding process. It's not as bad as it used to be. But as far as like the brake performance, these things are great. I really like them. Downhill racers have been racing these for years and have never had an issue. So I don't know why, if a new brake comes out, I need to get the latest and greatest. As you can see, I am still running flat pedals. That has not changed. It's almost like I'm pretty consistent with the parts I put on my bike. These are the Chromag Dagas. They're the same that were on that bike. Actually, these sets float from bike to bike. I have 3 sets of them, and I take them off and put them on different bikes depending on my needs. They're a little bit expensive. These are probably the bougiest part on my bike. I'm not going to necessarily recommend them to everybody. However, they really hold your feet on the pedal, and as someone who doesn't run clipless and doesn't like his feet bouncing around, these things do their job. Now, another thing that I've really come to like on my bikes is this stupid little one-up tool. This thing is freaking incredible. I bought this, I originally bought one for Haley because she kept needing one of my multi-tools. And that's a lie. I always needed hers. To make sure that she always had a multi-tool to supply to me when I needed one, I bought her multi-tool and put that in her bike. And we ended up really liking it. So we now have them on literally every one of our bikes. My only complaint is I can't find the little top cap in yellow. I'd like one more accent piece of yellow on my bike, but you know, the red's pretty nice too. So this is the ECD light. It just means you have to take your star nut and pound it into your stem or your steer tube a little bit further. There's another ECD that requires you to like thread your fork. All right, let's just kind of rapid fire some of the parts I have on my bike. So I'm running a SRAM drivetrain this year. I've been running that for a while. I find their systems just to work fine. I don't have any particular affinity towards Shimano or SRAM. I just like the lever feel of SRAM's more, I guess. I think the levers on Shimano's are a little bit longer, and I can go back and forth. I don't really have a strong opinion either way. I have no idea what size chainring I have in the back. I think it might be a 52. It is indeed a 52. It's a 10 to 52 in case you really care. As long as I have a big old granny gear to get me up the hill when I have to pedal, I prefer that. But like most of my riding on these bikes are going to be at bike parks. I want my bike to be set up for handling the chunk, handling anything I can throw at it. I can go ride in the desert of Moab, and I can also go ride the chunk at Whistler and be fine in both situations. The rotors I mentioned, but these are SRAM's HS2s, so they're a little bit thicker in diameter compared to the old rotors, and they have a paint on some of the legs to help with heat dissipation. Now, in my experience, I haven't been able to tell the difference yet, but I really haven't gotten this bike up to its full potential. It's early season, not all of our bike parks are open, so we're just kind of ramping up. So some of you may have noticed we have an interesting color scheme going on. We have kind of this ketchup and mustard color going on. Now, you'd think yellow being a basic color that it'd be pretty easy to get yellow components. You'd be wrong. There are very few parts on a bike that come in yellow. Grips are one of the few exceptions, but everything else, it's almost impossible to find. If you want anything else in yellow, you have to do a deep dive, or you can do it custom. So I went the route of doing it custom. So I've painted my seat yellow. I have got custom decals on my fork, which the first decals I got were a highlighter yellow. And so I bought another set and they were also highlighter yellow. So I bought another set and those were the correct color yellow. So you'd think it being yellow, it'd be really easy to find yellow decals, but you'd be wrong. Now you might be noticing I have these crank booties that are yellow. You might be asking yourself, where can I find those? You can't. Those are plasti dipped cranks. Yes, I went to those absurd lengths to get color coordination on my bike. Where's the camera? This is how I've taped it. All right, now I have these two things hanging, and I think this says to leave it for like 40 minutes. Does it hold up? I have no idea. I've done a few rides on it. It seems to be holding up, but whether it holds up the whole year, we'll find out. Now, on the topic of cranks, since we're talking about down low, I am running 175 mil cranks, I think. I don't know. They might be 170, they might be 175. They are what came on the bike, and I really couldn't care less what size cranks I have. I will say, if you bend these or you break them, they are almost available at any major bike shop throughout the country. If you're on a trip and something goes wrong, you can easily replace them. A few kind of more nitty-gritty things I've done to my bike. You might be able to notice this little pipe cleaner I have sticking out. One of the things I use to sound in my bike is I put pipe cleaners inside all of my cable routing. Even if they have internal routing, the cables still wiggle around a little bit and cause a little bit of chatter. So to cut down on any noise, I stuff those. They do get a little groggy in the middle of the year, so you kind of take it out, put in a new one. But to be honest, those are on its third season, I think, and they're still going fine. One thing with carbon frames is they tend to amplify really high frequency noises because it's kind of hollow. So if you have any creaks or anything on your bike, and if you happen to be wearing a camera that's positioned very close to where the creaks are happening, oh boy, people will let you know about them. My trick for the headset, because I did have a headset creak, is to wrap the bearing in a thin layer of electrical tape and put it in there. What that electrical tape does, it does a roll of grease, but it's a little bit less jelly, so gel kind of moves around. It's liquidy, I guess. And so tape doesn't move. Once it's in place, it's going to stay there. So it just helps deaden any sound. How many times have I said deaden? Let's say it a few more times. It helps sound deaden the butt. This is a trick that was taught to me by a mechanical engineer in the bicycle industry. And it's one who's produced bikes that have won World Cups. You guys are probably really interested in knowing what water bottle cage. I don't know. It was $7 off Amazon. Like it was the only thing yellow I could find. Now, if we do want to talk about something a little bit more interesting, I have my bike set in the short position. This bike has two positions. It has a long and it has a short. I tend to ride my bikes in the short position. So for the record, one of the interesting things making your bike short and long does is the further back you move the rear axle, the more your weight is distributed in the center of your bike or towards the front of your bike. And so that can affect your traction on one wheel or another. It's kind of like a semi truck. When you're loading a semi truck, you can put the weight on the rear tandems or towards the front, and that will change where the weight is placed. But you guys probably don't really care about that, but I find that stuff kind of fascinating. So yeah, while we're on the topic of that, I do run a longer stem. Most people these days tend to ride short 35-ish mil stems. This one, as you'll notice, is a 55 mil. It's what I've been running for years. It's what I'm used to. It's what I like. This is a 31.8 clamp diameter, so the bars are not 35 mil thickness. I'm dying on a hill that I think 35 mil bars are stupid. Even the carbon 35 mil that are designed to flex are not as flexible as a lot of the aluminum bars. So why are we going up in bar size? I don't know. That's my miniature rant. I mean, this whole video is a rant at this point. As far as bar width, I usually run 785-ish, and I've just kind of stuck with that because it feels good. I don't really see any reason to change it. Let's see. Anything else on my bike that I have not talked about? Now, some people are going to ask me about my tire pressure and maybe my shock pressures. And now what I'm going to say first is everybody is different. How much you weigh, the terrain that you're riding on, the tire casing, the conditions, everything affects what kind of pressures you're going to put into your bike. So what I run doesn't really apply to you. So in the back, I'm usually running about 28 PSI. I've gone up quite a bit in recent years. And even with downhill casing and cush core, that's what I run. In the front, I have enduro casing, and I tend to go with a few PSIs lower. So if I am running 28, I'll usually run 3 PSI lower in the front. So if we do our math, that's about 25, but sometimes it's 24. If I'm on kind of wetter conditions, I might go down to 26, or in a very rare occasional situation, I might go down to 25, but I'm usually at 28, especially when I'm at a bike park. And sometimes I'll even go up to 30 if it's a really kind of rough kind of terrain, but 28 is the sweet spot for me. As far as shock pressures go, I'm going to have to refer to that bike because I have the pressures literally written underneath the down tube. So these are my shock pressures. I like to take them, write them down, and then stick them to my bike because I have multiple bikes and I can't remember what bike takes what. So for example, this bike says I'm running 75 in the front and 160 in the back. I can tell you that this is BS. This is not what I have in my bike right now. This thing is kind of useless, but I'm still going to stick it to the bottom. I'm pretty sure I have 75 in the front. I think that's correct. But I think in the back I have 175 or maybe 180. All right, let's do a few Q&A from my audience. My only audience member at this point being Haley. Haley, do you have any questions about my setup? Oh, why do I run flat pedals and do you run clipless? Haley rides clipless because she was a cross-country racer and grew up riding clipless pedals. I was a BMX racer, so I also grew up racing in clipless pedals. However, when I'm out riding my bike, I want to have fun. That's my biggest goal. So I find flat pedals tend to be a little bit more fun, and they're just a small fraction of a second quicker to get off your bike. And that small fraction of a second, in my opinion, can be the difference between getting injured and not. So over my almost 30 years of riding bikes, I've broken 3 bones, and they were all within the same year. In the big picture, I've been relatively injury-free in my riding career. Now, here's some wood. Let's knock on that. I'm not superstitious, but some of you are, so there you go. We got a question from the young lady over there. You.
Why do you run the ergon grips? Why not any other grip? Why do you choose those ones?
Haley is asking why I run these ergon GE1 grips and why not anything else. Well, great question, Haley. They're one of the few grips that you can get in yellow. I wish that the downhill grips came in yellow because I would like to run their downhill grips, but I'm running their enduro grips. I think they kind of work. Something I did forget to talk about, I forgot to mention my dropper post lever. Seems like a small thing, but I really happen to like these PNW loam levers. They feel really good. Not to mention it's red, so it kind of goes with the color scheme. I was looking for a yellow one, but they don't make it. TJ, if you do make a yellow one, I will gladly take it because it would look really good on this bike or my other bike. So see, that's a situation where I know someone who works at PNW and I still bought this. He's a friend I went to school with. I can ask for free stuff, but I don't do that because I can buy stuff and I can support companies and people who make this stuff and help them live. Now, there's something else I've forgotten to mention this whole video. It's come to my attention that a lot of you have a hard time finding GT bikes. And this has been a very sore subject for me because I would love to tell you where you can buy a GT bike. And it's been very difficult for me to answer that question. Well, I can finally answer that question. You can literally find this bike on GT's website, and you can actually purchase it from their website. Honestly, it's one of the things that's been in the background, what they've been working on, and I've been really excited. So now you can buy GT bikes directly from their website. You can still go to dealerships and buy them there, because I do recommend supporting your local bike shop. However, if you don't have a local GT dealer and you really want a GT, that's where you can go find one. I will also leave a link to this frame in the description below. All right, now that we've been talking for 25 minutes, that's it. 45 minutes. And now I'm not particularly great at ending videos. So what I will say is, if you want to see a video of me riding this, feel free to subscribe, smash that like button, as the kiddos say. And also, I have a video already where I'm riding Highland on opening day on this bike. And I do want to plug one more thing, because this thing means a lot to me. On June 16th of this year, we will be doing a grand opening of the trail that Haley and I have built over the past year. Haley and I have spent the better part of the year volunteering our time in between making videos to build a professional grade trail in Bolton, Vermont. It's a place called the Driving Range. I'll leave all the information that you need in the description below. GT will be there with its fleet of demo bikes. So if you want to be there for that, I'll be there for that. Haley will be there for that. Come out, it will be a great time, and maybe that morning we'll be doing a walkthrough of the trail. So you want to see the trail on foot before you ride it, be sure to come out early. We'll leave any more information that we need to in the description, and be sure to check our Instagram pages. That's where we're going to be sharing more up-to-date stuff. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.